Why did the room go silent the second she answered? That was the question no one dared to ask out loud. Not the men standing in formation, not the officers pretending not to watch, and definitely not the admiral who'd started the whole moment as a joke, only to realize too late it wasn't one. The steel deck of the USS Vigilance didn't care who stood on it. Rank, gender, ego, reputation. Every step echoed the same way. But the silence that followed her reply, that was different. Heavy. Electric. Like something dangerous had just been released into the room and everyone was waiting to see where it would land. She didn't blink, didn't shift weight, didn't show the slightest sign of discomfort. She had practiced stillness long before she ever learned to fire a weapon. That was the number that froze the room. And yet she hadn't raised her voice, hadn't tried to impress anyone, hadn't even looked at the admiral when she said it. She spoke like it was just another number, like it didn't mean anything, like it didn't burn behind her ribs every time she closed her eyes at night and saw the faces, some clear, some fading, some just gone. But the admiral's face told a different story. He wasn't shocked that the number was high. He was terrified that it was real. Because he recognized it. He'd seen it before, on a file he was never supposed to see twice. Somewhere behind the row of operators, boots shifted on metal flooring. Someone swallowed hard. Someone else whispered a curse under their breath. No one laughed anymore. The same men who had smirked at her during inspection now stared like she was something they'd never been trained to deal with. Not an officer, not a woman, not even a sniper. A weapon. But she didn't see herself that way. Not anymore. Not after the pass. Not after the snow. Not after being told to die quietly so someone else could write the report. She stood still. Because stillness is what ghosts do when the world finally realizes they exist. The admiral tried to speak, tried to recover the moment, reset the power balance, but his throat worked around words that wouldn't form. Only when an aide stepped forward, tablet shaking in his hands, did Blackwood finally understand why the number mattered. The number wasn't a boast. It was a record. And that record wasn't hers. It was theirs. The people who sent her, used her, erased her, reused her, buried her, reactivated her. She didn't count the dead. The system did. She just carried the weight of the tally. He asked a question to humiliate her. But the truth humiliated him. That was the beginning, not of the mission, not of her story, but of the moment they realized the ghost was no longer where they'd left her. Not dead, not forgotten, not controllable. And that truth is what scared them. Not the number. Her existence. She didn't move as the formation was dismissed. Didn't react as heavy boots and heavier silence filled the deck. But she felt it, the shift. Fear doesn't always walk in with guns. Sometimes it walks in wearing a clean uniform, with a last name no one knows how to pronounce, and eyes that don't flinch when an admiral tries to break them. She waited exactly 15 minutes before entering his office. Not early. Not late. Because timing is the first language of people who have survived things they were not supposed to walk away from. Inside, the air was different. Not the air of command. The air of guilt. He tried to act like he was in control again, tried to fill the room with the authority that had silenced hundreds of operators before her. But this time, he wasn't the one with power. He was just the man holding a file that shouldn't exist. He opened it like it might explode. Names, photos, redacted reports, mission stamps that never appeared on Navy records, the kind of pages that weren't supposed to survive after the operator who wrote them didn't. "Why are you here?" he finally asked, but the question wasn't for her. It was for the past. The part of him that knew exactly why she had been sent. Because someone wanted a reckoning. Because someone higher than him realized secrets don't stay buried forever. Because someone thought it was time the dead started speaking. "I never wanted the Count," she said. And it was the first time something honest cracked the room. "I just made sure I was the one doing what no one else was forced to live with." He didn't have an answer for that. Most men don't, when the truth stops being abstract and starts carrying a human voice. Outside, the ship kept moving. Engines, conversations, metal against metal. Life went on like it didn't just witness the shift of gravity inside one office. But news travels faster than sound. By lunch, they weren't looking at her like the weak link anymore. They were looking at her like the missing chapter in a book they thought they had already read. She sat alone. Not because she needed isolation, she was used to silence. She sat alone because no one knew how to sit with someone who had been used by a system they still trusted. Until one man did. Chief Warwick sat across from her without asking permission. He didn't stare, didn't pry, didn't pretend not to know who she was. "You were supposed to be a ghost story," he said quietly. She kept eating. "They said you killed a man with a spoon once." She didn't look up. "It was a fork," she corrected. Silence. Then something close to respect settled between them. Not the kind they give in ceremonies. The kind reserved for people who don't need applause to prove what they survived. He asked the question no one else had the courage to. "The number, is it real?" She didn't lift her eyes, but her answer was the most honest thing spoken on the ship that day. Numbers don't lie, but they don't tell the truth either. Because there is no number for betrayal. No number for being left behind. No number for being told your death was more convenient than your survival. 467 wasn't the scar. It was the evidence of the wound. She didn't stay long in the mess. Not because she felt unwelcome, but because she felt the weather changing. And when you've lived as a shadow long enough, you learn to smell storms before they're visible. That night she slept the same way she always had, fast, deep, ready to wake instantly. She woke because something changed in the ship's rhythm, not loud, not obvious, just wrong. Her tablet lit up. Extraction protocol. Code verified. But not from command. Someone wanted her gone. Someone knew her identity went public. Someone decided she needed to disappear before the truth did. Warwick found her first. 3 counterintel officers are on board. They're checking every cabin. He didn't ask questions. He already knew the answer. He wasn't helping her escape the Navy. He was helping her escape people who didn't want the Navy to know the truth. She told him to walk away. He didn't, which meant something she had never allowed herself to admit out loud. Some people still believed in honor, even when the command structure didn't. She opened the hidden panel she had installed the first week aboard, because ghosts never live in rooms with only one door. She slipped into the vents. Silent, unseen, not running, just choosing her own exit. Because that is the only freedom a soldier can control, how they leave the battlefield. And this ship had just become one. Someone followed her. Not random footsteps. Not panic. Precision. Professional. Not Navy. Which meant she wasn't just being hunted. She was being erased. And somewhere in all that darkness, she realized something she had ignored for too long. She wasn't done. Not with the past. Not with the Count. Not with the people who built ghosts like her and pretended the dead stayed quiet. Because some ghosts don't haunt battlefields. They haunt the men who created them. And she was done being quiet. What happens when the truth finally wakes up inside the machine built to bury it? That question stayed with her as she moved through the maintenance shafts, crawling through metal corridors that smelled like oil, heat, and memory. The USS Vigilance slept above her, a city of steel and order, unaware that one of its own was shedding her skin in the dark. She moved like water, every motion controlled, every breath measured. In another life she might have called it fear, but fear burned out of her years ago, somewhere between the second mission that never officially happened and the day she realized headquarters had stopped calling her by name. Now she was just a file, an asset, a residual value on a classified spreadsheet. That's what ghosts become when their usefulness fades. The hum of engines vibrated through the walls, a low, constant reminder that life above deck went on as if nothing had shifted. But below, inside the veins of the ship, Aloan Reeve wasn't just escaping. She was remembering. Warwick's warning still echoed in her mind. They have your file photo. That meant Blackwood had acted fast, faster than she expected. He knew that if she reached communications first, the story he'd built on her silence would collapse. And for a man like him, truth wasn't just dangerous, it was lethal. She paused at a junction where the passage split. One route led to engineering, too exposed. The other, narrow and steep, crawled upward toward the ship's central data hub. She chose the latter, counting the seconds between ventilation bursts to keep her rhythm synchronized with the ship's breathing. In the darkness, her fingers found the seams of welded metal, each scratch and bolt a familiar language. Aloan Reeve, Lieutenant Commander, Task Force Umbra, call sign Spectre. It had been 12 years since anyone had said those words out loud. She wasn't supposed to exist anymore. The air turned colder as she neared the communications deck. The hum became sharper, data streams, secure signals, encrypted channels layered over one another. She slipped through a service hatch and froze in the shadows of a grated platform overlooking the control room. 3 men in black uniforms moved between glowing terminals. No insignia, no names, counterintelligence, off the books. Their leader barked short commands while an ensign manned the console, fingers trembling as he navigated security layers he clearly wasn't cleared to touch. "Channel 7 secure," the ensign said. "That's the Admiral's line," one of the agents muttered. "You sure we have clearance?" "We do now," the leader replied, flashing an authorization file marked with the red seal of Office of Naval Security. Too high for comfort, way above Blackwood's pay grade. The room glowed in sterile blue light, the kind that makes people look like ghosts even while they're still breathing. Aloan watched, memorizing access codes, timings, guard placement. Old instincts whispered in her bones: count steps, measure distance, watch for rhythm breaks. Then something flickered, the lights cut out. For 1 second the ship went blind. When the backup system kicked in, emergency red flooded the room. In that blood-colored light, the men reached for their weapons. But she was already there. The first fell with a silent pivot, elbow to wrist, twist, drop, non-lethal. The second turned too late. She redirected his own weapon, locking his arm until he gasped and fell. The third froze, seeing nothing but the reflection of her eyes in the monitor's glow. 7 seconds. That's all it took to reset control of the room. The ensign, Henson Harris, according to his badge, stared wide-eyed at the 3 motionless bodies. "Relax," she said softly, "they'll wake up." Her voice was calm, deliberate. It had been years since she'd used it for anything other than commands. She moved to the main terminal. "You have 2 choices, Harris. You stay and witness things you can't unsee, or you step out that door and say counterintelligence relieved you." His mouth opened, closed again. "Who are you?" "Someone fixing a mistake." He left fast, smart kid. Aloan's fingers flew over the keyboard, bypassing security walls like she was dismantling her own past. Layers peeled away, hidden directories, mission codes, encrypted archives. And then she found it. Khyber Pass Operation Command Review Classified. The file opened without hesitation. A younger Blackwood appeared on the screen, blood across his face, screaming into a camera as snow and fire blurred behind him. No extraction for Spectre. Target must be eliminated regardless of casualties. She watched her own silhouette on the footage, half buried in white dust, rifle steady, movements precise. The helicopter in the distance lifted away, carrying him and the wounded, and she stayed behind. 6 hours, 17 minutes, 42 confirmed. The file ended there. For a long moment she said nothing. Her reflection in the dark monitor stared back like it belonged to someone else. Then she inserted a secure drive and copied the footage. But copying wasn't enough. She initiated the shipwide broadcast override. Every screen on the Vigilance flickered: crew mess, flight deck, command bridge. Conversations died. Forks froze midair. Mechanics looked up from engines to see the snow-white nightmare of 12 years ago playing on every monitor. And in the bridge, Admiral Thaddeus Blackwood's world came apart. He burst from his quarters, still fastening his uniform, face pale as the images replayed. The pass, the bodies, the lone figure holding the line while he escaped. The truth he'd buried under medals now looped in real time before 6,000 witnesses. "Shut it down," he barked. "We can't, sir," the communications officer said. "It's streaming to CENTCOM, Pentagon, JSOC." He spun toward the screen and froze. She stood in the doorway. No weapon drawn, no armor, just stillness, the kind that makes armed men forget how to breathe. "What have you done?" he whispered. "Numbers don't lie," she said evenly. 42 in the pass, 425 more in the 12 years you used me, then buried, always alone, always deniable. "You were a weapon," he snapped, desperation cracking his voice. "A tool." "No," she said quietly. "I was a soldier who didn't leave anyone behind." Behind her, Chief Warwick and Commander Hayes stepped into view. The bridge crew shifted, torn between obedience and awakening. Hayes's voice cut through the tension. "Admiral Blackwood, by order of the Secretary of the Navy, you are relieved of command effective immediately." 2 Marines moved forward. The Admiral tried to protest, but the words died when she placed something on the console between them. A single dog tag, edges worn, letters faded. "His name." "I kept it," she said, "to remind myself that sometimes the people we save don't deserve it." He stared at it as if it were a mirror, then slowly removed his insignia, laying it beside the tag. His voice trembled. "Spectre didn't hold the pass alone," he confessed for everyone to hear. "She carried me back, then went back for the others. I falsified the report." For the first time, his words served truth instead of self-preservation. "I resign," he finished. She looked at the insignia, those small symbols that bought silence for 12 years, and pushed them back toward him. "Keep them. Remember what they cost." He nodded once, broken, and allowed himself to be escorted away. The bridge exhaled. No one cheered. No one dared, because it wasn't victory they'd witnessed. It was revelation, the kind that doesn't cleanse, it scars differently. Commander Hayes turned to her. "The Secretary requests a secure line, now." In his office the screen flickered to life. The face on it was all sharp lines and sleepless eyes. Amanda Chen, Secretary of the Navy. "Lieutenant Commander Reeve," she said, skipping ceremony. "Report." "Objective achieved," Aloan answered. "Admiral Blackwood relieved. Record secured. Task Force Umbra confirmed active during classified operations from 2011 through 2019. Evidence en route." Chen nodded once, a flicker of relief. The President was briefed. "Operation Clean Slate is authorized. We're ending the use of deniable operators." "With respect," Aloan said softly, "that promise has been made before." Chen's expression tightened. "Not with this kind of evidence. You've done your part. A transport is en route. Your new orders are transmitting now." The terminal beeped, encrypted data arriving. "In Blackwood?" Aloan asked. "Tribunal, closed session. His cooperation might save him a cell." She looked away from the screen, voice flat. He's not the only one. No, Chen admitted, but he's the first. Good work, Commander. The President said it's time the ghost stepped into the light. Not all ghosts want to be seen. Maybe, Chen said, eyes softening, but they all deserve to be acknowledged. When the call ended, Hayes handed her a sealed file. Your new assignment, Joint Special Operations Command, Task Force Clean Slate. She accepted it but didn't open it. And the ship. I'm taking command until a replacement arrives. You've done what few could, Commander. The crew won't forget. They shouldn't, she said, but let them tell the story however they need to. Sometimes legends serve a purpose. He nodded. Transport waiting. Chief Warwick will see you out. As she walked through the passageways, conversation stilled again. Not fear this time. Respect, maybe awe, maybe confusion. The kind of silence reserved for ghosts walking among the living. On the flight deck, night wind whipped across the open sea. The helicopter waited, rotors spinning, ready to carry her toward another mission she hadn't chosen. Warwick stood beside it, uniform fluttering in the rotor wash. Commander, he called out, that extraction order you got, it didn't come through official channels. I know. It came from someone inside Naval Intelligence. Someone who wanted you off the ship before you exposed Blackwood. She met his eyes. Then Blackwood wasn't acting alone. No, he had protection way above him, and now they know you survived. Good, she said, let them. The cold hint of a smile ghosted her face, the kind you wear when you've finally stopped running from what you are. He hesitated, then held out his hand. In it she placed the small gray stone with the white line, the one she'd kept since Khyber Pass. From the place where it started, she said, keep it. Ghosts shouldn't carry anchors. He closed his fist around it, understanding more than words aloud. The count, Commander, he asked quietly over the roar of engines. 467, were they all necessary? She looked past him toward the sea, where horizon met darkness. Every one of them thought they were protecting something worth dying for, she said. I made sure to know what that was before I took it from them. Then she climbed aboard. The helicopter lifted, banking away from the carrier. Below, the Vigilance shone like a constellation of steel and light. She watched it recede until it was only a reflection on black water. 12 years in shadow. Now she was stepping into something even darker, the truth. And somewhere in that darkness waited the people who built her count. The ones who believed ghosts never come back. They were wrong. Because she wasn't coming back for revenge. She was coming back for reckoning. What happens when a soldier who was never meant to return is suddenly given a new mission? Not a mission of guns, not of maps, not even of enemies, but of truth. The helicopter cut through the night, its rotors chewing the air like a clock counting down to something neither she nor the world was ready for. Below her, the ocean looked like a sheet of frozen darkness. No reflection, no horizon, just the kind of black that swallows names, memories, and the parts of a person that don't survive wars. She didn't look outside. She didn't need to. She'd seen enough versions of the world from a bird's-eye view to know humanity always looked small from above. Even the loudest conflicts, the biggest nations, the brightest flags, everything shrank when you rose high enough. But one thing never did. Guilt. It followed, like altitude meant nothing to it. She leaned back, eyes closed, not asleep, never asleep, just still. The same stillness she used in snowfields, ruins, safe houses, rooftops. The kind of stillness that lets the body heal while the mind stays armed. A file lay on her lap. Top seal, JSOC EYES only. Secondary marking, clean slate priority personnel. Her name was not on the cover, which meant the file wasn't about her. It was for her. She didn't open it yet. Not because she feared what it contained, but because she already knew the first page would be a name she once trusted. The pilot's voice crackled through the headset. Commander Reeve, we're 20 out. She nodded without speaking. The call sign on the chopper door read Reaper 19, JSOC aircraft, no naval designation. That meant someone had moved fast, too fast for a bureaucratic response. Someone wanted her activated before the people who wanted her erased could regroup. The helicopter banked, descending through clouds. Below, a military airfield emerged, floodlights, hangars, perimeter teams, black SUVs lined in absolute order. Not a welcome. A transfer. When the wheels touched ground, she stepped out without ceremony. A cold wind hit her, dry inland, not saltwater. She did a quick read of the terrain, mountain outline, thin air, temperature drop. Colorado, Raven Rock or Peterson Air Base. Both meant one thing. Deep-level classified operations. An officer approached. No rank, no name badge, just a black folder and the kind of posture men develop after 20 years taking orders higher than generals. "Commander Reeve," he said, "this way." She followed. No questions. Not yet. Inside the convoy vehicle, the doors sealed. Noise vanished. Sound dampened interior. High-risk transport standard. He handed her the black folder. Mission clearance level, Orion Black. This file does not exist outside this vehicle. She opened it. Page 1. A face. Not an enemy. Not a target. A woman. Marine Lieutenant Talia Voss. MIA, Kurdistan, missing 9 months, presumed dead. Except the photo wasn't a casualty photo. It was surveillance. She was alive. But her eyes hollow, like someone who hadn't spoken in months or wasn't allowed to. Page 2, her unit. Task Force Umbra, same program that created Spectre. Page 3, the signature that authorized Umbra's reactivation. Admiral Blackwood. But the date was recent. Too recent. 9 months after the pass. 9 months after they buried the program. Or pretended to. She flipped the page. And there it was. A signature she hadn't seen in 12 years. Rear Admiral Rowan Cade, Director, Office of Covert Warfare. Not Blackwood. Higher. Blackwood was the cover. Cade was the architect. The voice in the shadows. The one who built ghosts. Her jaw clenched slowly, like a fuse finding flame. The officer beside her watched carefully. There are others like you, not many. Umbra wasn't shut down, it was privatized. Contract run, off book. Cade moved them. Moved where? She asked. We don't know, that's why we need you. JSOC has operators. We need someone who understands ghosts. She closed the file. They're not ghosts, she said, they're prisoners. He didn't answer. Truth doesn't need confirmation. When the convoy stopped, the gate ahead opened with a slow mechanical groan. Inside, a bunker swallowed the road. Thick concrete walls, triple security doors, reinforced for threat levels the public didn't know existed. The officer turned to her. Inside is the man who signed your death certificate. She said nothing, but her pulse remained unchanged. They descended 3 levels down, elevator silence, fluorescent chill, the scent of paper and metal and secrets. At the end of a corridor, 2 Marines stepped aside, unlocking a final door. Inside, a single room, 1 table, 1 man. Older now, gray where black once was, hands steady, eyes unblinking. Rear Admiral Rowan Cade. The man who never sent rescue. The man who blamed her for surviving. The man who replaced her with another generation of shadows. Sit, he said, voice calm, like speaking to an equal. She didn't. She stood. So did he. The officer left the room, door sealed shut. 2 ghosts, 1 passed. You were supposed to stay buried, Cade said, as if it were a greeting. You were supposed to stop making more of me, she replied. He studied her. Do you know how many lives you saved? Governments held because of you, attacks prevented, wars never started. 467, she said quietly. That's the number of people who died to keep those governments standing. He didn't flinch. History remembers outcomes, not methods. That's why you chose ghosts. No history, no grief, no graves. He smiled faintly. You were the perfect design. No, she said, I was the cost. Silence spread, thick as concrete. You didn't come here for justice, he said finally. You came because someone told you Umbra was still active. He was right. She didn't confirm or deny. He walked to a cabinet, pulled out a black case, and placed it on the table. Open it, he said. She did. Inside, 5 dossiers, each with a photo. Not of enemies. Of operators. Women, men, ages 20-35, all marked Umbra-level asset, status, absent without record. Taken. Not lost. Not dead. Repurposed. They're being used, he said, as deniable assets for government leaders who don't want congressional oversight. She looked up, and you're suddenly against this. I built a program to protect national security, not to give warlords tools with American blood type. You didn't mind when it was me. You weren't supposed to survive. The room chilled. He continued, You want truth, Commander. Here is truth. The country still needs Umbra. It needs someone who can operate where laws can't reach, but not like this. Not owned, not broken, not sold. She watched him carefully. You want me to bring them back? He nodded once. 5 operators, all missing, all trained like you, all conditioned for loyalty, but they've been isolated too long. They don't know who the enemy is anymore. And why me? Because they'll trust you, before they remember the world doesn't deserve trust. She closed the case gently, like sealing a wound. Where are they? Unknown, that's what you're going to find out. She exhaled once slow, and when I do? That depends on what you believe they deserve. He walked to the door, pressed a panel. It unlocked with a heavy clank. Your team is waiting on sub-level 4. They don't know who you are. Don't introduce yourself yet. Let them underestimate you. It's a tactical advantage. She paused in the doorway. You created ghosts, she said, but you forgot the first rule. He raised an eyebrow. Ghosts don't stay loyal, they stay unfinished. She left him with that. The door sealed, he stood alone. Not in command. Just haunted. Down the corridor, she walked toward the elevator. Her reflection in the steel door met her with the same stillness she'd worn in the past. Not anger. Not vengeance. Purpose. Because this time, the mission wasn't to kill. It was to save the last pieces of a machine built to erase people like her. The doors opened. 5 faces waited inside the briefing room, 3 men, 2 women, younger, sharper, still believing silence made them invincible. They didn't know her yet. But they would. Because she wasn't their commander. She was their future. Or their warning. They stared at her, assessing. One smirked. One ignored her. One looked through her like she wasn't threat enough. She let them. Ghosts learn fastest when they think they're the hunters. Before anyone spoke, the lights dimmed. The wall screen activated. A map. Middle East, Eastern Europe, West Africa, 3 zones highlighted in red. Under it, primary Umbra signal anomaly, last trace of LT, TALYAVOSS. And in that moment, everything inside her clicked into motion. Not obedience. Not orders. A promise. The kind soldiers don't write down because the world wouldn't understand the words. She sat. Finally. And the mission began. Not to raise her kill count, but to decide whether ghosts deserved resurrection. Or release. What do you do when the people you're sent to rescue might not want to be rescued? That thought settled in the back of her mind as she sat across from the 5 operators, the new generation of Umbra. Faces young enough to still believe they were unbreakable, eyes old enough to already know that belief was a lie. The briefing room was cold by design. Metal table, blank walls, no flags, no unit patches, no identity to hold onto if the world decided to deny they existed. Just like Umbra always intended. She watched them the way a sniper watches wind movement, not for danger, but for information. The woman on the far left, dark hair knotted tight, arms crossed, jaw locked, defensive posture, authority issues, still calculating whether any of this was worth her loyalty. The tallest of the men had a rhythm in his fingers, tapping, not anxious, controlled. That meant discipline under stress, likely demolitions or surveillance. Another sat slouched, too relaxed, shoes untied, not laziness but a challenge. The kind of operator who hides sharpness behind apathy. The youngest, wide-eyed, shoulders too square, still training himself to imitate fearlessness. First combat deployment or still waiting for one. The last one, the quiet one, sat still. No tapping, no shifting, no expression. Those are the dangerous ones, not blank contained. Good, she didn't want a normal team. She wanted people who already lived in the kind of silence she came from. The briefing started without warning. The overhead screen lit up with satellite footage, grainy, time-stamped, restricted clearance. A voice came through the intercom, not the officer from the convoy, someone else, someone higher. Team Orion, you will be deployed to 3 possible sectors associated with Umbra signal bleed. Primary objective, locate and extract missing operators. Secondary objective, recover or destroy mission logs connected to unauthorized black contracts. No mention of what happens if the missing operators refuse extraction. Which meant the answer was unsaid. Which meant it was her call. The voice continued, you will have 1 attached advisor, temporary rank authority over this operation. Designation, Spectre. That word changed the air. The quiet one's eyebrow moved. The woman's head tilted subtly. The one with the untied shoes sat up straighter. They knew the name. They just didn't expect it to belong to this woman in front of them. She didn't acknowledge the title. Names never impressed ghosts. Only choices did. When the audio cut, the lights returned. Silence hung thick and waiting. The one who had been tapping fingers spoke first. Spectre's a myth, a PSY-ops legend. They used the name to intimidate insurgents. You're not. She turned her head, slow enough to feel the weight in the room shift. Finish that sentence, she said softly. Not a threat. A test. He didn't. Because deep down, he already knew. She looked at the map glowing on the table. 3 unknown zones, 3 traces of stolen ghosts. We move in rotation, she said. Start with the closest signal, adapt based on whatever we find. Assume we're not the only ones tracking them. You mean someone else wants them too? The youngest asked. No, she said. I mean someone already has them. The quiet one finally spoke. And what happens if they don't want extraction? Her answer came without hesitation. Then we find out what they do want. Not command, not heroics, not orders. Understanding. Because no one becomes Umbra without being broken first. Deployment was set for dawn. No patches, no unit names, no traceable comms. Just a plane, a set of coordinates and silence. The kind that either binds a team together or becomes the thing that buries them. Before they boarded, she walked the runway alone, letting the cold sink into her bones. The kind of quiet nights where past and present overlap like ghosts layered on glass. 12 years ago, she would have flown into a mission like this with one objective: survive the objective. Now she flew in with a different weight. Don't let them become you. Inside the transport, the team geared up. Not standard issue weapons, custom builds, modular, adaptable to any terrain. Umbra always preferred tools over firepower. Noise was failure. Speed was only useful if it didn't leave a trace. Aloan secured her weapon last. She didn't need to check it, she knew how it breathed. The sniper rifle she carried was old, scarred, not replaced. Not because it was perfect, because it remembered everything. They lifted. The plane cut across continents like a scalpel, no transponder, no trail. The kind of aircraft that didn't exist in congressional funding logs. Hours passed, no one slept, not even the youngest. Good. Exhaustion kills more operators than bullets. The first mission zone appeared on the screen, mountain terrain, frozen valleys, old Soviet-era bunkers scattered across the landscape. Kyrgyzstan, remote, unfriendly, perfect place to hide people who needed to disappear. They inserted by halo jump. Cold enough to burn skin, thin air biting through the mask, world vanishing beneath them like a swallowed secret. She hit the ground in silence, boots sinking into snow. One by one the team landed, no chatter, no wasted movement. They were good, not experienced enough to know what it cost to be good, but trained. They formed a perimeter around her, not because she ordered it, because instinct told them to. She crouched, brushed snow aside, revealing scorch marking, tire tracks, boot imprints, chemical burns. Recent. Too recent. Movement within 48 hours, she said. Not military, small convoy, heavy load based on track depth. The one with the untied shoes scanned the tree line. You smell oxidizer. She nodded. They're moving fuel, not for transport, for destruction. The youngest looked confused. Why destroy evidence? Why not relocate it? Because you only relocate what you plan to use again, she said. This, someone wants erased. The map guided them to a bunker carved into the hillside. Rusted steel doors, frozen hinges, no guard presence. Too easy. She lifted her hand. Stop. The team froze. She stepped forward alone, ran fingers along the edge of the steel. Heat faint but real. New weld. The bunker wasn't abandoned. It was sealed from the outside. Not to protect what's inside. To trap it. The quiet one moved beside her. You think someone in there. She looked him in the eye. I think we're standing on a grave someone didn't want to dig. She placed a charge, not to blow the door, just weaken it. Then she stepped back. Controlled breach, no entry until air reads safe. The door gave way with a metallic scream. A wave of dead air rolled out, thick, stale, chemical-tainted. They waited. Too quiet. Too long. Then the wind shifted. And with it something else. A sound. Not a scream. Not footsteps. A voice. Weak. Ragged. Repeating the same phrase. Leave, leave, leave. She lifted her weapon, flashlight cutting through the dark. Then she saw him. A man. Shaved head, bruised face, uniform stripped of rank, hands bleeding from scraping at the sealed door until nails tore. Eyes wild. Not from madness. From memory. The man looked up. Saw her. Stopped breathing. Spectre. The name fell from him like a confession. The team stared at her. Because now they knew. She wasn't a myth. She was the reason this man was still alive. She knelt beside him, voice low. Where, Voss? His lips trembled. Gone. Taken. No, his voice broke. She walked out. The silence that followed wasn't confusion. It was fear. Because no Umbra operator walks out of captivity. Unless captivity wasn't the prison. It was the plan. She leaned closer. Why did they trap you here? To erase me, to erase her. Why her? His eyes lifted, haunted, hollow, shining with belief no torture could burn out. Because she stopped being an asset. Then what did she become? His voice was barely more than air. A believer. She felt the room shift, something old, something dangerous. The bunker wasn't the mission. It was the warning. She stood. Extract him now. The quiet one hesitated. Commander, what if Voss doesn't want rescue? She will, she said. But inside she wasn't sure. Because belief is stronger than orders. Stronger than survival. And sometimes stronger than truth. As the team secured the prisoner, she stepped outside and stared into the icy wind, every instinct sharpening into a single realization. They weren't chasing missing operators. They were chasing people who had chosen to disappear. Not ghosts. Not prisoners. Followers. And whatever they were following wasn't Umbra anymore. It was something new. Something built from the ashes of people like her. And if Voss wasn't waiting to be saved, she might be waiting to convert others. The mission had just changed. And the most dangerous enemy isn't the one who wants you dead. It's the one who believes they're saving you. How do you hunt someone who was trained to never be found? That question followed her long after they lifted the wounded operator out of the snow and into the extraction craft. The team watched the helicopter disappear into cloud cover, but she kept her eyes fixed on the frozen horizon. Because she wasn't watching the sky. She was watching the silence. The kind that follows someone who no longer runs from the world, but runs towards something darker than it. Talia Voss. Umbra Operative. Marine Sniper. Last seen 9 months ago. Not dead. Not captured. Gone by choice. And somewhere in that choice, she wasn't just surviving. She was recruiting. They trekked from the bunker in a tight wedge formation. Snow crunched beneath boots, radios stayed cold and quiet. No one spoke, but every pair of eyes kept stealing glances at her. Not fear. Not doubt. Recognition. You don't become Umbra without learning to read the person walking in front of you. And they were beginning to understand something. She wasn't leading them into a mission. She was leading them into a mirror. An hour into the march, the youngest finally broke the silence. Commander Reeve, that operator in the bunker, why did he call you Spectre like he knew you? She didn't turn, didn't slow. Because he did know me. But I thought you were never on the same missions as later Umbra teams. I wasn't, she said, but Umbra didn't train soldiers, it trained belief. Once you're inside the machine, names become legends. Legends become warnings. Spectre wasn't a person to them, it was a sentence. The quiet one spoke next. You were the sentence. No, she said, I was the proof the sentence exists. They walked on. The woman with the crossed arms, Myra Lorne, studied her, voice low, controlled. What did he mean when he said Voss became a believer? That's what I'm trying to understand, she said. Umbra was built on obedience, not faith. What if someone replaced obedience, Lorne said, with something stronger? She didn't answer, because she already knew what that something was. Purpose. Not assigned. Chosen. They reached the ridge at sundown. Wind bit harder, carrying the scent of metal and smoke, burned fuel, scorched wiring, melted frost. Not nature, human. She raised a fist. Stop. They dropped to the snow, one by one scanning the trees. Talon, the one with the loose laces, spotted it first. Thermal signature 30 meters ahead, low heat, maybe a camp, maybe a cache. Or a trap, the quiet one added. Same thing, she said, move. They advanced. Weapons low, steps silent. Then the trees opened into a clearing, small, hollowed, circular, like something had been placed there and removed. Burn marks in perfect radius, ashes, shredded fabric, a metal post half melted into the ground. Talon crouched, brushing aside snow. Thermite, strong burn, clean disposal. Somebody didn't just leave, someone wanted the ground to forget they were ever here. Or, she said, they burned what couldn't be carried. The youngest stared, like evidence. No, she said quietly, like identity. She knelt, fingers digging into half-buried debris. A scorched patch of fabric came loose, charred but not gone. She turned it over. Unit patch. Umbre. Burned by Umbra hands. She stood. That bunker wasn't their prison, she said. It was their filter. Whoever didn't convert was left to die. The rest walked away on purpose. Talon's voice came slow, thoughtful. So this isn't extraction. No, she said, this is pursuit. The quiet one, Rafe, she was learning his rhythm now, scanned the tree line again. If Voss has gone off-grid, how are we tracking her? She looked at the burned patch in her hand, by what she leaves behind. The wind shifted again. Not carrying cold this time. Carrying sound. A single echo. A shot. Not near. Not random. Calculated distance. 1.1 seconds of delay. That meant two things. Sniper. And close enough to see them. She didn't shout. Didn't break formation. Just spoke one word. Down. The team dropped instantly, bodies disappearing into snow as if the ground had swallowed them. Another shot. Not at them. Behind them. She risked a glance. A small drone, civilian type, modified, fell from the air, shattered. Not surveillance. Witness elimination. Someone covering their tracks, Rafe murmured. No, she said, someone's showing us they're watching. The difference mattered. She rose to one knee, slow and deliberate, like offering herself as a silhouette. If the sniper wanted her dead, she would already be bleeding. So the question wasn't who fired. It was why they missed. She waited. Silence. Then a second sound. Metal. Swinging. She turned. A canister hung from a tree branch, lightweight, matte black, swinging like a pendulum. She approached it slowly, eyes tracking movement, weapon low but ready. She reached up and caught it. Small, no detonation port, no pin, no explosive weight. A cylinder. Message container. She twisted it open. Inside, a single sheet of paper, folded once, dry, placed recently. She unfolded it. Handwritten. 3 words. Stop following ghosts. She stood there, paper fluttering in the cold, team watching her. Talon exhaled a short breath, so they know we're here. They knew before we left the bunker, Rafe said. She nodded, which means they're not running from us. They're leading us, Lorne finished. The words settled like snow on steel. The path ahead wasn't a chase anymore. It was a trail. And someone wanted her on it. Night fell fast. Too fast to move. They set camp in the ruins of an old watchtower, one wall intact, roof fallen in, enough cover to survive the storm without silhouette exposure. No fire, no comms, no visible heat source, Umbra protocol. They ate silently, rations, no talking. But minds don't stay quiet. Umbra operators don't fear fights. They fear reflection. Hours passed. One by one, the team faded into controlled sleep. Except her. She sat against the wall, eyes open, watching wind carve patterns in the snow, like ghosts writing messages no one would bother to read. She had been them once, belonging to nothing, living for missions no one would honor, taught to kill clean, taught never to feel the weight. But every ghost carries the same truth in the end. The mission doesn't end when command stops speaking. It ends when the soul stops obeying. Footsteps approached. Soft, careful, not afraid but respectful. Rafe. He sat beside her without asking. Didn't look at her, didn't speak. Good, she could tolerate silence when it wasn't empty. You think Voss started this? He finally asked. No, she said. I think someone offered her something Umbra never did. Freedom. No, purpose, she said. Freedom is too big for ghosts, but purpose. That's the one thing every operator bleeds for. Rafe nodded slowly. You think she believes she's doing the right thing? I think she stopped believing Umbra was. Another silence. Then he asked the question no one else had dared. What made you leave? She didn't answer immediately. Because the truth wasn't simple. She didn't leave Umbra. Umbra left her. Left her in a valley of snow with a rifle and a lie. Left her off the extraction list. Left her obituary pre-written. Left her with 467 faces she didn't want but was forced to remember. I didn't walk away, she said. I was the test run, proof that a ghost can disappear and the world won't notice. But the world did notice, he said. No, she said, the world didn't, the people who built me did. He studied her then, not as a commander, not as a myth, but as the thing no briefing prepared him for. A survivor of orders that should have killed her. You ever wish you hadn't made it out? He asked quietly. She looked at him. Not with anger. With honesty. Every day. He nodded. Not in judgment. In understanding. Because every operator, no matter how strong, has a moment where survival feels heavier than death. He stood, get some rest, I'll take second watch. She didn't move. Didn't promise sleep. Just watch the snow. Because ghosts don't rest. They wait. Dawn bled gray over the mountains. The snow was untouched. Except for one thing. Footprints. Fresh. Clear. Not from the team. One person. Walking straight toward them. A voice carried on the wind. Steady. Calm. Female. Not shouting. Inviting. You're close, Spectre, but you're following the wrong trail. Talia Voss. Standing alone beyond the ridge. Not armed. Not afraid. Looking right at her. And smiling. Why would a woman walk into the open, unarmed, in front of a fully armed extraction unit trained to eliminate threats before they speak? That question hit every member of the team the moment Talia Voss appeared on the ridge, calm, composed, looking like she had already decided how this meeting would end. She didn't run. Didn't hide. Didn't aim. She waited. The kind of waiting that tells you the person in front of you isn't afraid of dying. Because they already buried the version of themselves that could be killed. The team froze in formation behind her, weapons up, stance ready, breath short, but she raised a hand. Stand down. They didn't fire. Not because they trusted her, but because they trusted the stillness in her. She stepped forward alone. Not as commander. Not as soldier. As the ghost Talia Voss came to meet. The wind cut sharply, dragging snow around their boots like moving sand. Voss watched her approach, eyes bright, not wild, not broken, not drugged. Aware. Certain. Like someone who had found a truth the world refused to teach. Long time, Voss said, voice steady, softened by something that wasn't fear or respect. Recognition. I never met you, Aloan replied, but I know what they did to you. Voss smiled, sad but sure. No, you only know what they didn't do for you. That landed deeper than expected. The team behind them shifted, small movements that revealed a bigger truth. They were listening, and that made this moment dangerous. Voss stepped closer but stayed outside firing range, just far enough to show she understood every rule of engagement, every psychological line. "You were the first ghost," she said. "The prototype. The one they abandoned to prove the program worked without survivors. They kept your legend alive long after they declared you dead." "That's not a compliment," Aloan said. "It wasn't meant to be," Voss replied. "It was meant to show you what you missed." That phrasing caught her attention. Missed. Voss nodded once. Purpose without obedience. Identity without command. A world where we don't get used until the mission ends, then erased so the paperwork stays clean. "You're recruiting," Aloan said. "No," Voss corrected gently. "I'm offering something Umbra never did." "And what's that?" "Choice." The word hung in the frozen air like a dropped weapon. Rafe, listening behind her, inhaled sharply. Lorne's jaw clenched. Talon stopped pretending to be careless. Because choice was the one thing Umbra erased before it trained them. Voss stepped closer, slow enough to show she wasn't a threat, bold enough to show she didn't care if she became one. "That operator in the bunker," Aloan said. "He said you walked out." "I did." "He said you became a believer." Voss nodded. "I stopped believing their version of honor. I stopped killing for men who would never stand on the ground they sent me to bleed on." "And now you kill for who?" Aloan asked. "Not who," Voss said. "What?" She reached into her jacket slowly, not for a weapon. No tension spike in her body, just a folded piece of paper. She tossed it forward. It slid across the snow. Aloan picked it up. It wasn't intel. It was proof. A list of names. Not enemies. Umbra operators. Marked DPLOID, TRMNATD/lost/absorbed. Not absorbed by foreign military. Not by mercenary groups. Absorbed by private states. Governments without countries. War without nations. Cade's signature was on half the sheet. Blackwood's on others. But below them, new names. Men in suits. CEOs. Defense contractors. Billionaires in clean offices who never held a rifle but owned armies no flag ever saluted. "They sold us," Voss said. "Not to America, not to patriotism, to profit." "And you think disappearing makes you free?" Aloan asked. "No," Voss said. "I think disappearing makes us uncontrollable." She let the weight of that sit. "You think the world fears soldiers?" Voss asked quietly. "No, it fears soldiers who can't be owned." Then she turned, not to Aloan, but to the 5 operators standing behind her. "You were trained to believe your life belonged to command. What if I told you command was never the one pulling the trigger?" Talon's eyes narrowed. The youngest swallowed. Rafe didn't blink, but he waited. Voss continued. "You think your weapons, you're not, your assets. Numbers, buyable, deployable, expendable. They don't bury ghosts, Commander, they recycle them." That hit hard, because it wasn't wrong. Aloan had lived the proof. "So what's your plan?" Aloan asked. "Burn every chain, tear down Umbra?" Voss met her eyes. "No, replace it." That was the first time fear, not from the cold, not from enemy fire, but from possibility, entered the space between them. "You're building your own Umbra," Aloan said. "Not Umbra," Voss said softly. "Umbra wasn't the problem, ownership was." "And who leads this new version?" Aloan asked. "You." "No," Voss said. "Anyone who refuses to be controlled." "Sounds like rebellion." "No," she said, "reclamation." Aloan stepped closer. "And what if they don't want what you're offering?" Voss didn't flinch. "Then they walk away, freely. That's what makes this different. I don't need to own anyone." "But someone else will," Aloan said. Voss nodded, accepting the truth instead of denying it. That's why I came out, she said. Not to fight you, not to take them, to give you the one thing no one ever gave me. And what's that? Aloan asked. A choice before someone makes it for you. She turned her back, knowing no one would take the shot. Because power had already shifted. The mission wasn't extraction anymore. It was persuasion. And persuasion always starts with doubt. Voss took 5 slow steps backward into the wind. Third signal is real, she called out. If you want the others, follow it. But don't follow it for orders. Follow it to decide what kind of ghost you want to be. Then she looked at Aloan one last time. You were the first, but you don't have to be the last mistake they get away with. Then she vanished into the storm. No gunfire. No chase. Just revelation. The team stood frozen. Not from temperature. From choice suddenly being real. Aloan turned to them. No speech. No threat. Just truth. Pack up, she said. We move at first light. The youngest swallowed. Commander, are we still extracting her? She looked into the dark where Voss disappeared. No, she said. We're not extracting anyone. Then what are we doing? She holstered her rifle. We're finding out if we're still soldiers. Or already ghosts. And in that moment, every one of them realized the mission was no longer about saving Voss. It was about deciding whether Umbra was the enemy, or the grave they were still standing in. What happens when a mission stops being about orders and starts being about identity? That question haunted every step they took when dawn finally bled across the mountains. No one talked about Voss. No one had to. Her words were still sitting in their heads like a live round lodged too close to the heart. Choice. Freedom. Ownership. Words that don't belong in military vocabulary. Because soldiers don't choose. They obey. Or they disappear. The team broke camp in silence, each member moving with the same practiced efficiency, but the rhythm was wrong now. Before, they moved as one unit. Now they moved as 6 separate thoughts pretending to be a unit. That was the first fracture. Small. But fractures don't stay small. They spread. The third Umbra signal was deeper in the range, older buildings, abandoned outposts, places that never stopped being used even after the world stopped admitting they existed. Snow thinned as they descended into a valley shielded by jagged stone. Tracks, multiple sets, human, not animal, fresh again. Whoever they were following wasn't hiding. They were guiding. Talon muttered, "Feels like we're being handled." His tone sounded like a joke, but his eyes didn't. Lorne replied quietly, "People only lead you somewhere if they're sure you won't like what you find." Rafe didn't add anything. He didn't need to. He was already thinking further ahead than the rest of them. And the youngest, Rowe, kept looking at Aloan like a man searching for the answer before realizing she might not have one. They reached the structure by midday. Not a bunker. Not a base. A school. Or what was left of one. Shattered chalkboards, collapsed roofs, children's desks still half buried in dust and ice, and yet no graffiti, no looting, no scavenger marks. Too intact. Too preserved. Aloan's boot paused over a piece of wood. She bent down. A single coin. Foreign polished. Placed. Not dropped. Like a marker. Inside, the air felt wrong. Not cold, not abandoned, waiting. They swept the interior. No hostels. But signs of habitation, recent. Cleaned surfaces, moved debris, sleeping mats, food wrappers. They weren't chasing shadows. They were walking into a space someone wanted them to see. Rafe found it first, a camera, tiny, hidden behind a cracked windowsill, not transmitting, not active. Just a reminder. "You're not observing them," Lorne said. They're observing you." Aloan said nothing. She moved toward the back of the building where a classroom door hung partly open, the number still painted on it, 6. She pushed it open. And there it was. The second Umbra operator, sitting in the middle of the room. Alive. Unbound. Waiting. No visible injuries. No restraints. Just a man in faded fatigues, sitting cross-legged on the floor, staring at the wall like it was telling him a story no one else could hear. His head turned. Slow. Controlled. Eyes clear. Not a hostage. A witness. "Lieutenant Price," Aloan said. "Aloan Reeve," he replied, voice calm, as if she were a scheduled visitor. "You know me." "I knew the idea of you," he said. "They taught us about the ghost who wasn't supposed to exist, the one who survived the pass." "You disappeared 8 months ago," she said. "No," he corrected, "I was removed." "By who?" "Depends," he said. "You want the name of the person who gave the order or the person who made the decision?" "That's supposed to be a riddle." "No," he said. "It's the difference between a leader and an owner." The team exchanged looks. Even Rowe was beginning to understand. These missing operators weren't broken. They were done. Aloan crouched across from Price. "Why did Voss walk out?" "She didn't walk out," he said. "She walked up." "Up to what?" "To the truth, the one we were always too loyal to question." "And what truth is that?" "That the world doesn't need more soldiers," he said. "It needs fewer owners." "And who decides who's an owner?" she asked. He looked at her like the answer was obvious. "You do, we do. The ones who bled for flags that were only ever rented, never earned." That hit something in the team. Something deep. Something dangerous. He continued, voice steady. "Umbra stopped being a military program a long time ago. You know that. You were the proof. A soldier without a country. A mission without a grave. They didn't make you disappear because you failed. They made you disappear because you proved they didn't need uniforms to control lives." She didn't look away. Because she already knew. Because she lived the evidence. "You think I came here to recruit them," she said. "To bring Umbra back." Price smiled, soft, tired, knowing. "You came here to see if your ghost still has a pulse." The room didn't move. No one breathed. Because now the mission wasn't just about missing soldiers. It was about missing selves. Aloan stood. "Pack your gear," she said. "You're coming with us." "No," he said, "I'm not." The youngest's hand tightened on his rifle. "You don't get a choice, sir. We were sent to extract you." Price turned to him with the patience of someone who already walked past fear. "You weren't sent to extract me," he said. "You were sent to make sure I wasn't still alive." That cut deeper than a bullet. Because it was true. The mission didn't include persuade. Only locate. And resolve. One word. Flexible enough to mean rescue. Cold enough to mean euthanize. Aloan said quietly, "You really believe Voss is building something better?" "I don't believe it," Price said. "I chose it." There it was again. Joyce. The crack spreading wider. Rafe finally spoke. "Commander, if he refuses extraction." "Then he refuses it," she said. Rowe's voice cracked. "You're just letting him walk." "No," she said. "I'm letting him stand." Silence. No orders. No command. Just the weight of decision. Price looked at her, not grateful, not relieved, just aligned. "She's waiting, you know," he said. "Not to fight you, to see if you remember what they took from you." Aloan didn't answer. She didn't have one yet. The team moved out. But they didn't move the same. Rowe kept looking over his shoulder, like the abandoned school might whisper something he wasn't ready to hear. Talon walked quieter, like footsteps might give away doubts he hadn't admitted yet. Lorne didn't break stance, but her breathing rhythm had changed. Rafe stayed calm, but his silence wasn't observation anymore. It was calculation. And alone. She walked forward, but her mind was walking backward. To a snowfield. To a pass. To a rifle. To a choice she never got to make. They reached the ridge again, but something was different. The world had shifted. Not physically, internally. "What now?" Rowe finally asked. She stared at the horizon. "The last Umbra signal is 2 countries away," she said. "We continue." "Commander," Talon said carefully, "if we find the third one and he says the same thing." "He won't," she said. "How do you know?" "Because the third one isn't waiting to be found." She turned to them. "He's waiting to test us." Lorne asked the question no one else wanted to ask. "And what happens if the test isn't whether we can extract him, but whether we want to?" Aloan didn't blink. "Then we answer honestly." "And what if we all answer differently?" Rowe whispered. Her voice didn't waver. "Then the mission wasn't to find them. It was to find out who we are without orders." The wind shifted again. And in that wind, one realization settled like frost. They weren't just hunting ghosts anymore. They were becoming them. And the third Umbra operator would decide whether they stayed soldiers or vanished into the same silence they were chasing. What if the mission you've been following all along was never meant to succeed, but to reveal who you are when there's no command left to obey? That question rode with them through the borderlands, across mountain roads, through silent towns where even dogs didn't bark. No one spoke anymore, not because there was nothing to say, but because every word now felt like a vote. They weren't a unit. They were 5 different answers walking in the same direction. The third Umbra signal led them into a dead zone. No satellites, no comms, no coordinates on public maps. Just a single abandoned airstrip in the middle of a desert where heat didn't shimmer, it hovered. The runway cracked underfoot, hangars empty, windsock torn, no sound but the kind that makes the air feel heavier than gravity, the kind of place that remembers more gunfire than conversations. They moved in formation. Not perfect formation. Almost. And almost is worse than broken. They entered the hangar. Empty. Except for one chair. One man. Sitting, waiting. Aloan knew him before she saw his face. Sergeant Karen Hale. Umbra Recon. Silent entry specialist. Good at disappearing, better at making people disappear. But he wasn't armed. He wasn't restrained. He wasn't afraid. He didn't even stand. "You made it," he said, like he'd been expecting company. Rowe raised his weapon. Rafe didn't. Talon didn't. Lorne didn't. Aloan didn't. Because Hale wasn't a target. He was the truth. "You were supposed to be dead," Rowe said. "I was," Hale replied. "But death doesn't stick when the people who sign the paperwork never see the body." Aloan stepped forward. 2 operators walked away from Umbra. One rejected rescue. One rejected orders. "What are you?" Hale smiled. "Proof that both sides are right and both sides are wrong." He nodded toward the far wall. There was something pinned there. Something that made everyone's breath slow. A file. Not classified. Personal. 6 names. 6 operators. 5 alive. 1 listed as deceased. Spectre status, died in action Khyber Pass. Her name. Her death. Her erasure. Signed by Admiral Blackwood. Co-signed by Rowe and Cade. Stamped by someone even higher. But under it, a 7th signature. Talia Voss. Aloan didn't look away. Why her signature? Because she didn't confirm your death, Hale said. She refused. She knew you were alive. And that was the moment she stopped believing Umbra served anything except its own secrecy. So she walked, Aloan said. No, Hale corrected, she woke. He stood now, slow, steady, deliberate. Price found belief, Voss found purpose, me, he shrugged. I found the truth you never got. And what truth is that? That you weren't abandoned because you were expendable, he said. You were abandoned because you were proof that a soldier can survive without a master. Her heartbeat didn't change, but her hands did. Fingers no longer curled around a rifle. They curled around understanding. Rowe's voice cracked. So what now? We just walk away, pretend we're not owned. Hale looked at him gently, the way a ghost looks at someone still breathing. You think freedom is walking away? He asked. Freedom is looking at the people who trained you to obey and choosing not to. Lorne stepped forward, and if we choose differently? Hale nodded. Then you stay government property, no shame, no insult, just a fact. Rafe finally spoke. So this was never extraction, this was evaluation. Not by me, Hale said, by you. Aloan stared at him. Then why gather us here? Because the people who built Umbra are watching, he said, waiting to see if their ghosts still kneel when called. She knew what he meant. Not metaphor. Literal. Someone somewhere expected a report. Expected obedience. Expected silence. And for the first time, silence wasn't an answer, it was a weapon. Hale took something from his pocket. A comm device. Encrypted. Direct line. One press, he said, and command assumes you've succeeded. They reabsorb you. They reactivate Umbra. You go back to being shadows they control. He tossed it to her. It landed in her hand like a trigger disguised as plastic. And if I don't press it, she asked. Then Umbra dies, Hale said. Not by rebellion, by abandonment. A machine can't operate with no one left to pull the lever. Rowe whispered, you want us to just disappear? No, Hale said. I want you to appear for the first time in your life on your own terms. She walked past him. Not to leave. To think. Because this wasn't a mission. This was a mirror. She turned to her team. Say it, she said. All of you, out loud, what do you want? Rowe swallowed. I want to go home, not to a unit, just home, and not worry someone can recall me like equipment. Lorne looked at the comm device. I want to stop being owned, but I don't want to become someone else's weapon. Talon exhaled. I don't care about the politics. I just don't want my death announced before I'm done living. Rafe didn't hesitate. I want to choose my wars, not inherit them. She looked at Hale. And you? I already chose, he said. I chose not to kill for people who wouldn't bleed for me. Then they looked at her. The ghost who started this. The one who was supposed to stay buried, so no one else would ever know the truth. And she realized she had never been free. Not when she survived the pass. Not when she came back from the dead. Not even when she took down Blackwood. She had been fighting for honor in a place where honor didn't exist. She looked down at the comm device. One press meant survival. For the program. For the lie. No press meant death. Not for people. For the machine. She closed her fist around it. Everyone waited. The desert waited. The past waited. She lifted the device. And let it go. Not drop it. Not crush it. Just open her hand and let gravity decide. It hit the concrete. Shattered. Silence settled. Not empty. Relieved. Hale nodded once. Not victory. Recognition. You just killed Umbra, he said. No, she said quietly. I just stopped feeding it. Rowe lowered his weapon. Lorne exhaled for the first time in hours. Talon smiled, real, not defiant. Rafe watched her differently now. Not as command. As choice. Hale said, so what now? She looked out at the horizon. Real horizon. Not a mission map. Now, she said, we decide who we are without someone writing it for us. He nodded, and Voss. She already knows, Aloan said. She was never running from us. She was waiting to see if we'd keep running from ourselves. They stood there a long time. Not as soldiers. Not as assets. Not as ghosts. Just people. Finally unclaimed. And for the first time in years, the air didn't feel like a battlefield. It felt like a beginning. She turned to leave, and the others followed, not behind her this time. Beside her. Equal. Free. Because freedom doesn't ask for permission. It just stops apologizing. No salute. No extraction. No command. Just footsteps leaving a place that finally had no power over them. And as the sun hit the broken comm device, its pieces gleamed like fragments of a flag no one wanted to raise anymore. She didn't say a speech. Didn't offer a lesson. Didn't look back. She just walked. Because sometimes the loudest rebellion isn't fire. It's absence. Sometimes the truest victory isn't raising a banner. It's dropping a burden. And sometimes, dignity doesn't speak. It simply walks away and refuses to return when called. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.